So what is a code review? Let's first outline the subject a bit. A code review is someone who wants to make a code change, but he isn't allowed to make it straight to production. So what he or she does is make a couple of changes and show it off to a peer, another programmer or someone else inside the company or outside the company, it doesn't matter. Showing your code before it gets merged to other environments like staging or production. That is a code review. Who can do the code review? Someone else inside the company, could be a consultant outside of the company, could be the CTO, could be another junior dev, could be anyone, basically. Not all code reviews have to be done by the CTO or the lead developer. So what does it look like? You push some changes to GitHub or to Bitbucket, whatever you want, and someone else is going to review that. He or she is going to look at the commits, look at the individual lines that have changed, and provide some feedback. Right? It's a feedback loop. Based on that feedback, the programmer will reply to some answers, reply to some questions with some answers. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? And maybe also push some more commits to fix stuff. And that's a circle. So it's a basic feedback loop. If you make the feedback loop fast enough, it feels like pair programming, actually. So in the end, the reviewer will say, oh, well, this is finally in a state that I want to merge this into develop branch or master branch and push it out to staging or production. So that is approving. Not everyone has the luxury to work in a team with multiple people, so you can also do a code review or your own code. Before committing code, you can do git add-p to review individual chunks of changes before you actually commit them. So that's also pretty useful. It's a one-man show or one-woman show. You can also work with Git branches and GitHub and make your own pull requests before merging them if it's a one-woman show or a one-man show. Basically, you review your own code in a different environment on a different screen than your IDE. That's also useful. That helps with pointing out some failures or some flaws in your own code. But why would we spend some time on that? Why wouldn't we just push to production? And if it works on my machine, it works in production, right? Well, basically, before I started doing this talk, I was at a meetup and I was talking to some person, and the person wasn't happy with his current workplace. And basically everything he said why he hated working there was because they didn't do code reviews. The code style sucked. People were pushing things to production. Production would break. More senior developers would revert changes every time when someone else had pushed something to master. There was no communication between the developers. So basically everything he said that he hated about the company was because they didn't do code reviews. So it is pretty useful to spend some time on that. It's not a waste of time. For the person that is submitting the code, it is useful because they can learn from their peers. They get feedback on their code. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe there's a different design pattern that better suits this situation. As a submitter of a code review, you also start to feel more responsible for the product. You first have to show your code, what you did, your changes, to your peers. Coding is a craft, so everyone likes to put out their best effort and show it off to their peers. Look what I did. You start to feel more responsible for the product and for the code that you're putting out. You're taking pride in the code that you craft. It's also useful for the peers that are reviewing the code. I do maybe 15 hours a week on code reviews, and I still learn every week. PHP has so many functions, I still learn new functions every week. I still learn new things or creative ways of doing, of crafting a solution. I can still learn from the most junior devs in my company and in other companies that we work for. It's also useful because I may not be working on some features that my peers are working on, and I still want to know how that is built. I can still learn from that, because maybe in 2 weeks' time or 6 months' time, I will be working on the same features, and I want to know upfront how it's built. I don't have to know, but I like to know, because coding is a craft. So it's useful as a reviewer too. It's also useful for management. So if you go back to your company and you go to your manager and you say, I want to do code reviews. Well, this is why. It raises the level of both your juniors and your seniors. They both learn from each other. It's making your team more coherent. They start to work better together. It also raises product awareness about all the features. How do features work? How are they built? If someone leaves the company in 2 weeks' time, and the person has built a new feature 3 weeks ago, and someone else has to take over, but you didn't do code reviews, it's going to be a hell of a task to look into the code that no one has ever seen. If you would have done code reviews, it's easy. Just jump in and you've already seen this code. So it generates better code. You get some feedback loop and you improve the code before actually merging it. So better code means more maintainable code, which means easier addition of new features. That's what bosses like, right? Some PHP CEO likes to tweet capital stuff. This is not really good. It's better to do less deploys and have a feedback cycle before pushing to production. So, what should you do when you're making a pull request, right? It's not as easy as git commit, git push, click, create new pull request. It's a bit more. First, you get a task assigned, right? Build a new feature, remove a feature, adjust a feature. Read the task. What is expected? Plan a meeting with the product owner or whoever made that task. Ask them some questions. What is expected? How should this work? Is this a filter with a slider? Is this just a plain text field? How will this look like? What is expected? What do I need to make? Do I need to make a Gaussian curve filter or just a plain text search? That's, do some analysis, do some research before you actually start making the code. Then, when you start to code, test first, right? Make a test, what is expected, an integration test. That's easy. Make sure that the test fails. And then start coding your way. Well, that's a best practice, but I admit I don't always do TDD. Right, so you made your test. Commit the test. Make it go to CI. See it fail. Cool. It fails. Then add some more tests, some more commits. Like add a new endpoint, rename a variable, make a new CLI command, test the backup, remove some conditionals, make some if-else statements disappear by using a better way of coding, do some solid design, remove something, do some code style fixing. Make that a separate commit each time. Everything you do is a separate commit. About commit messages, I can go on and on about that for another hour, but after this it's lunch, right? So I won't do that. Basically what I do is I think this commit and then I continue writing what my commit message is. this commit fixes the code style. This commit renames this variable. I don't write this commit, but I do write the rest. So that's my format of doing commit messages. Yours might be different, but that's okay. So you made all the commits, and then you push it to GitHub or Bitbucket, and then you want to compare the changes to the base branch, develop maybe, or development. Then you hit create new pull request. There's a big form here. Use that. It's useful. Create a beautiful title. What does this do? Right? This adds this new feature. Some brief title. And then use the big box below, the description, pull request description, to fill out all the details. You want to properly document this PR. Write a change log, right? I removed this variable, I removed that feature, I added an endpoint, I re-enabled backups if you're GitLab. A link to the assigned issue or the task. The person that is going to review your PR will want to know why you did this. Why did you add this endpoint? So the person that is reviewing your code can actually click that and go see what the assignment was, and then use that in the back of his or her head to review your code. Is this okay? Is this in line with the expectations? And then below the changelog, also add some description about the decisions you made. Why did you use this design pattern, or why did you use this composer package, right? So that it doesn't have to be rediscussed afterwards, so that the reviewer doesn't have to add a lot of questions. Why did you use this, or why did you rename this variable to I instead of index? Something like that. And then last step to the right, assign some reviewers, one or more, right? Could be yourself, could be someone else, could be multiple people. Right, so that's your pull request, great. But I also said something about code style, and I want to give you a brief intermezzo about code style. We all know PSR2, right? You all know that, well, you may not know, but soon there's also PSR12 with some PHP 7 syntax stuff. And there's also Symfony code style, which is what we use in our company. This code style actually extends PSR2 with some extra rules. And on top of that, we even add some more rules. It's open source, so you can look it up. We add some more rules to make it easier to review some code. I'm going to give you some examples, and then you say left or right. Which of the diffs, code diffs, is easiest to review? Okay, first one. Which is the easiest? Left, correct. Why? Maybe the green isn't so clear. Yeah, smaller diff. So it just says, I added one line. The diff on the right is exactly the same, but there wasn't a trailing comma here. So we added the multi-line array trailing comma rule to our rule set of code styles, because it makes it easier to review code. If you look at the left one, you see, oh, one line has been added. If you take a look at the right one, it says, one line has been removed, and then you added two. But what does this functionally change? It's easier to see the left one, the functional changes in the left one, compared to the right one. And that is what you want as a reviewer. You want to see the functional changes. You don't care about the code style, you care about the functional changes. That is what your task is, to see what the functional changes are and to give feedback on that. Next example. Which one is the easiest? The right one, right? A lot of people like to align stuff in their IDE, so it's easier to read in columns. But if you change one key of this JSON, for example, then you might need to reorder in the entire column. And that makes it harder to review. Sometimes you have files with 300 entries in a JSON file, and it's super hard to see what the actual difference is. If you change one key and you make a super long key, and then you have to reformat the entire file, it's super hard to spot what the single line that caused the change is. So forget about the alignment. Just do this. Do PHP doc params, disable it. That would align the PHP docs, doc block. Also disable the align double arrow, disable the align equals, because that will, if you assign stuff with an equal sign, that would align all the equal signs. I hate that. I hate that. As a reviewer, I can't stand that. It's hard to see what has actually changed. Next one is braces. Which one is easiest to read? The right one, right? The left one didn't have changes, have a code block after the if statement. So if it's a one-line if block, you can actually drop the curly braces, but it's harder to spot what has actually changed. Okay, this dark green bit helps a bit, but it's not enough. It's super easy to see that, oh, you added one subscriber here. That's it. Super easy. Same for constructors. You can new up a new item without using the braces. Just use new with braces, code style rule. If you use that, you actually enforce the use of the braces. And this one, everyone likes this one, right? It's at the end of a file when you don't have a new line after the last empty line. It says no, GitHub says no new line at the end of a file. And this week I saw this at a client. They do slash, 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 4 slashes, I don't know why, end of file, no new line. It's crazy. Just use PSR2, add some more rules, if you like, and add that to your CI check so that everyone has their code style enforced. And it makes reviewing code easier. So what should, this is the end of the intermezzo, what should a reviewer do? First we talked about what should the submitter do, what should the reviewer do? Well, first the don'ts. Just don't bash about code style. Make it an automated tool, make it a check in CI, use a linting tool. Enforce it. It's not easy if you're working with a legacy code base, but try to work towards a uniform code style. Another thing you don't have to check as a reviewer is this code mergeable? GitHub will tell you if it's not mergeable. It will tell you if there are conflicts. So that's something you don't have to worry about. Don't complain about duplicated code. 2 lines of duplicated code isn't bad. If it's readable, if it's more clear, then just leave it. Use some automated tools to report duplicated code. It's okay if there's 2 lines of duplicated code. Just use Scrutinizer CI or something to notify you about it, but don't start commenting on code like make an abstract function for this. It's not necessary. If it's readable, it's okay. Just keep track of your technical depth. Use Scrutinizer CI, use Travis CI, use CS Fixer, linting tools, whatever, ESLint, whatever you want. Just use all those tools to make your job as a reviewer easier. If CI says that something is not on par with company standards or project standards, then the CI tools will tell you. So basically, everything that's automated, you shouldn't do that that's a don't. One last thing that's not automated is discussing the issue. The person that has submitted the PR should already have discussed that. That person should already had the discussion and the questions and the why is this, what should this look like. You don't have to rediscuss that. Basically, in an ideal world, the submitter of the code will already have done that. If you see that the submitter of the code didn't ask enough questions, close the PR and say, please rediscuss this because I'm pretty sure that this is not what is expected. So, what you should do as a reviewer is look at the PR. Look at the description, the changelog, the design decisions. Go to the linked issue as well to see what was expected and what is discussed. If you read that first and then you look at the code, you will easily spot that when something is not implemented the way it should. And then you can say, maybe go back to the project manager or the product owner to rediscuss the design of the feature. After that, you go look at the code and you look for things like the naming of variables, the naming of methods. Yeah, you look at design patterns. Are they implemented well? Do the correct classes implement the correct interfaces? Stuff like that. That's something that cannot be automated. There's no AI system yet that can detect design patterns. If someone ever invents that, then we're all out of jobs. Look at the clarity of the code. Is it readable? When you have to continue developing that feature in 2 or 3 months' time, will you be able to step in and start progressing? Is it clear? Sometimes code is just too creative. Sometimes, one example, we had to use slugs in a URL, but the slug had to be unique, so when it's not unique, we just add -2, -3, -4 until it's unique. And there was a while loop which decremented an index. And I said, don't you want to increment like from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4? And then I noticed that there was no concatenation of the dash. And then after 15 minutes of tinkering, what does this code do? I found out that actually the index decremented to -2, -3, and that was converted to a string and appended to the slug. That's just too creative. I had to tinker about that for 15 minutes to figure out how it was implemented. It's crazy. So I stepped in and I said, it's not really clear, maybe just make it super clear, add a dash, and then add the string version of the int. Anyway, so it needs to be clear. Ask some questions if something is not clear. Like, why did you name it like this and not use a static factory method or something? Always be asking questions. Even if, just asking questions. The answer to the question can be a valid reason for doing stuff like this. Could be, the answer to the question could be, oh, I don't know, I just implemented it like this, but maybe another way is better. So questions can still go both ways. It's better than saying, you should do it this way, or you should do it that way. Because if you ask a question, there might be a valid reason behind it, behind the decision. Also look at, so we looked at naming and stuff, we should also look at missing migrations. Will this deploy to production automatically? Will this cause any failures in Redis or something? Maybe we should clear cache when we deploy this. Stuff like that. That's something that AI cannot do yet. Then, when the cycle is complete and you approve this pull request, you should give some credits. Give it thumbs up, well done. Add the ship emoji, or a ship that's being shipped off. Some GIF or something. Make it funny, make it cheerful. Give some credits. Like, I'm glad we finally can merge this. Good job. Also about the questions, if you have some questions and you're discussing some decision, maybe link some articles or blog posts. Could be useful. Could be that this person or that person doesn't know this design pattern, or doesn't know a command bus. Just link an article about command buses. It's a way of educating the person without having to type an entire blog post in a pull request. So the reviewer, the submitter, has also been putting the effort in to make some atomic commits, so you can actually use this. Go to the previous commit and the next commit. I hate that this previous just jumps to the right. OCD, you know? If the reviewer has been putting in the effort to make atomic commits, you can use this to look at how this person has been implementing this. Take it step by step. It's like pair programming, but delayed. If you're reviewing code and you've been giving feedback on a person's pull request, you should also mind your language. Language is important. I already said that you should be using some GIFs or some emojis, thumbs up, ship. It makes it more cheerful. Also give some credit when you learn something new. If you see a function and you never heard about that function and it's super smart to use that function in this situation, just say so. I learned something new, thanks. Give compliments. Use a GIF, like, yep, looks good to me. Or if it's a super huge PR with 500 commits and you finally managed to ship it, I feel sorry for the cameraman or woman. Ouch. So language is important. When you're reviewing some code, make it less personal. Just step away from the person that has been putting out the code. You don't have to say, oh my god, I'm a big fan of your code. Fanboying is not really it's not for this situation. Another thing I like to do when a pull request is ready to be shipped, but you have some small amount of time left, then I ask, maybe add this one more thing, just go one step further, give it the extra 1%, just to see how far you can stretch the person, how far you can make this person go to making the perfect code. On the other hand, if time is pressing and the code works, there's some issues with it, some naming things, but basically it works, let it go. Just make it ship. It's also fine. Just depending on the time or the time till the deadline, make your code reviews change a bit. If you have some extra time, push for better code. If you don't have enough time, let go of some principles and ship the code. Has anyone heard about the lizard brain? I see a few nodding heads. Okay. The lizard brain is basically one of the oldest parts of our brain. We inherited that from the lizards, like alligators and stuff. I don't know much about lizards, but basically, the lizard brain is a thing that activates our offensive mode when we get attacked. So when we get attacked, we fight back. It's an old part of our brain that does that. And basically, you can trigger that by using the wrong words. If you say something like, do you even know this design pattern? Do you even know how to write JavaScript? That's offensive, and people fight back. So mind your language. You're working with people. You don't want to offend them. They're your peers. You will have to work with them maybe for a long time. So better be friends with your peers and use some suggestive language. Instead of saying you, make it about yourself, right? for example, you see a pull request and you know that some things can be better. Use some suggestive language, like, I would maybe think about something, make it about you and say, I would, or I feel like if we figure out a way to do something like that. Use maybe a lot, or would, or what do you think about this? Make some suggestions and then ask for their opinion instead of enforcing stuff. So yeah, that's suggestive language. Don't trigger their lizard brain. The next thing, this is a compound emoji, that's not a real one. It's called the shit sandwich. You know, when you have to give feedback to a person, better wrap it up with something nice. You might be giving some hard words or maybe touch their feelings, but better start off soft, right? Soft bun on the bottom. Say, like, it looks like it works, good job, you've been putting in a lot of time and effort in this, but there's the next layer, the shit layer. It's so funny. I'll tell you this later. So go to the next layer and then give the feedback. What do you think about that class? Maybe change it to a factory, or I don't know. Maybe there's already something in this project that can do that instead of rewriting stuff. So maybe what do you think about using this class instead of writing your own? What do you think? Again, use some suggestive language there. And then, after the feedback, return to the first soft layer. You want a soft bun to top it off with some sesame seeds or something. Say something other suggestive, like, maybe if you work with this or that person, I'm pretty sure that we can collectively finish this off and ship this code and then move on to other things. That's topping it off with a soft bun. So start off soft, give the feedback, use suggestive language there. You don't want to trigger their lizard brain, and then top it off with something nice again, right? So that is how I like to give feedback. And the funny thing is, once you know this technique, you start to notice when someone else uses it. So that's, sometimes it's like, wait, did you just... but it's okay, it's okay. They know how to give good feedback. It tells you something about them instead of telling us something about you did wrong. And then last but not least, we're running ahead of schedule here, but you'll be first in the lunch queue. This box, it's about merging. It's the last step of a pull request. Who do you think should merge a pull request? The one that has been reviewing the code, or the one that has been putting out the effort? I see some nodding heads at both sides. Basically, what we feel is, it's personal. We work with a remote team, and some people might be working in the PM while we are already asleep in Europe. Basically, whoever presses the button and triggers the deploy to staging has to be comfortable fixing the deploy or fixing the incoming bugsnag errors, because you don't want the staging to be down or a test environment for the client to test to be down when someone who actually can fix it is sleeping. You don't want to call other people in their sleep. There's also this little link here, command line instructions. That's also pretty useful. Before merging it, you might consider pulling in the code locally and test it out, right? It's not only for QA engineers to test out stuff. It's useful to merge this code locally and check it out before merging it into development. So, wrapping up here, Code reviews are nice. They're useful for your entire team, your entire company. It's not a waste of time. As a submitter, I would like to urge you to review your own code before committing it or before sending in a pull request. You might catch some stuff before someone else catches it. Maybe a lost var dump or something. Automate as much as possible. Put some more linting tools in CI, some more testing tools, smoke tests, whatever. Maybe I just thought about this. Maybe some fake some deploy. It's also useful. You can do Capistrano deploy without actually doing it. So reverting right before you move the symlink. Give some valuable feedback, but stay positive. Don't touch their lizard brain. Try to use suggestive language and, of course, the shit sandwich. If you see the shit sandwich being used against you, don't be offended. It's just well played. Now, I would like all of you to go to your teams, go to your bosses, spread the word, give some good feedback, and learn from your peers. That's it. Thank you.